If you're a big fan of the Alienware laptop but aren't quite fond of the insane pricing that comes along with it, you'll be happy to know someone at Dell had a good thought. You shouldn't have to compromise between daily groceries and a really expensive gaming laptop. As such, the Dell G15 came to life. That's my theory anyway. The point being, this is the latest iteration of the Dell G15 laptop. As such, it's rocking Intel's 13th generation 13650HX i7 processor, 16 gigabytes of DDR5 memory. We also have a dedicated RTX 4050 with 6 gigabytes of VRAM. Past that, we also have a modest 512 gigabyte SSD, a little small for a gaming laptop, but more on that later on. Additionally, we have a slightly dated Wi-Fi 6 standard, though we do get Bluetooth 5. And finally, this is a 15-inch laptop. There is a lot to talk about. As you can imagine, there's a ton of technicalities here that need to be discussed, so let's get into this review. Packaging is pretty straightforward and boring, to be honest, so the G15 comes in a very standard looking cardboard box. But once you open it up, things get pretty interesting pretty quickly. Firstly, you have the G15 itself. Remove all that protective packaging, and here it is in that, I think, thermal black color. But more on that in a minute. Past that, you have this massive 330 watt charging brick. This thing is bigger than Gorilla Crap, I kid you not, and it's heavy. Now, finally, you have the standard wall outlet charging cable piece, and that's pretty much it. The Dell G15 really tries to emphasize that it's a gaming laptop. Those sharp linear edges, razor-style designs just give it a very badass gaming kind of vibe to it. Though I will admit the choice of black color here is a little too reserved for a gaming laptop and kind of works against the whole gaming vibe theme. Now with that said, since this is not an Alienware, the entire laptop has a plastic finish from top to bottom. Though it's worth noting that Dell may have cheaped quite a bit in certain areas. However, despite the build quality, you still have a hefty weight of 6.2 pounds, making this a fairly heavy 15-inch gaming laptop. Now, starting with the top side, the first thing you'll notice is this thing is a bit of a fingerprint magnet, though even more so, I am a little concerned about the ultra shallow and hollow plastic casing at the top. There is a little bit of flex. There shouldn't be any immediate durability problems, but you do want to take a little bit of caution when handling this machine. I/O ports are kind of all over the place with this laptop. Starting with the rearmost side, you'll notice you have two large heat exhaust vents with this really cool red effect behind the grills. Now, as far as the ports go, you have a one DisplayPort 1.4 with USB-C of course, and then a HDMI 2.1 port, followed by a standard USB-A super speed port, and then you also of course have the DC port for charging. On one side, you have yet another heat exhaust vent, followed by a RJ45 port and a headphone jack. On the other side, you have one more heat exhaust vent and then two USB-A super speed ports. I/O port diversity isn't bad. A SD card reader would have been appreciated, but I guess it is what it is. As soon as you unfold this laptop, you will be taken away by surprise at the fact that you have a very limited amount of palm rest space here. In fact, if you have very large hands, you might find it a little troubling to keep your hands across the palm rest. With that said though, the trackpad is also quite small. So interestingly enough, you'll find 13-inch laptops with larger trackpads than the one you have here. The good news is that the quality of the trackpad itself is pretty decent. So the clicks are tactile, it's fairly well calibrated, and while it is a plastic surface finish, it's very smooth and easy to glide across, though I suspect many of you will be using an external mouse given it is a gaming laptop after all. The keyboard is something that I was truly impressed by. So you have nice large keycaps with a decent amount of surface area. They're well labeled and fairly easy to read. Additionally, it's fully backlit. You have a orange LED backlighting system here, which looks quite nice and modern. You also have a full-size 10 keypad for some added productivity. But what I like the most is the actual typing quality. The keystrokes have a good amount of key travel, but they also have this linear feeling appealing to them, which means they are fantastic for gaming but also for general typing activities, making this one of the best keyboards I've actually reviewed on a laptop this year. Still watching? I'm so happy to see that. I just wanted to ask, if you are enjoying the content, please consider subscribing to this channel and liking this video. Not only does it genuinely help the channel grow, it allows me to produce more content like this. These laptops are not cheap, and believe it or not, I have to buy these. Dell does not sponsor me in any way or form. So of course, your subscription and viewership goes a long way, and I also want to just thank you so much for watching this video. Let's continue. Directly above the keyboard, you have a passive linear air output grill over here for further cooling. Now you will also notice that the hinge quality here is definitely decent. Granted, it's more stiff than your traditional hinge, but I'd rather have a stiff hinge than a wobbly one any day of the week. Now, the actual display fitting is interesting. So you have a ridiculously fat chin at the bottom, which, mind you, is quite visible. But thankfully, things sort themselves out since you get nice modern narrow bezels on either side of the screen. And then at the top, you have a medium-sized forehead. At the center of which you will find a 720p webcam that will suck your soul right out of you. Now, I'm not going to hold this against Dell because generally speaking, gaming laptops are not known for their webcams, and at least they're including one. Asus still doesn't include one in 2023. The display on this laptop is absolutely stunning and really well done. In fact, it's so good it's hard to believe that it's on a mid-range level gaming laptop. So you get a Quad HD resolution, additionally a 16:9 aspect ratio, a impressive 240Hz refresh rate, a 2 millisecond response rate, and you also have a peak brightness of 400 nits, meaning this laptop is bright enough for both low light and bright settings alike, plus it has an anti-glare coating. Additionally, it's an IPS panel with great wide viewing angles. You do not get any sort of touch captivity, but who cares about that anyway, right? Now, what's really impressive here is the fact that you have a 99% DCI-P3 color gamut rating. If you are doing color sensitive activities like photo or video editing, this laptop is more than ample and capable of doing those kind of activities thanks to this super high quality display. Even if you were to cheap out and get the lowest configuration display on this laptop, you still get a decent full HD screen with a 120Hz refresh rate, so really it's a win-win situation no matter what you pick. In terms of performance, let's keep in mind that we have a i7-13650HX series processor, 16GB of DDR5 memory in a dual channel configuration. We also of course have a RTX 4050 with 6GB of video RAM. Now all this basically means day-to-day activities like web browsing or word processing are going to be a total breeze for this machine and a no-brainer, honestly. More demanding activities like Blender animations or conventional programming are also going to be a total walk in the park for this machine. It's going to excel at those kind of activities. More demanding activities like multi-layer 4K video editing on DaVinci Resolve, for example, is not a sweat either. I was able to stack 3, 4, even 5 10-bit layers of 4K footage, and not once did I encounter any frame drop. And even render times are quite fast, mind you, thanks to the added GPU support over here. For the gaming portion, I kind of want to do a more versatile test rather than just toss all the AAA titles I could. So I started off with Doom Eternal. Now it is worth noting the RTX 4050 cannot max out Doom Eternal, however it comes fairly close. I was able to bring most settings to nightmare level and play the game. The good news is that at native Quad HD resolution, I was getting consistently 120 plus frames per second at, again, really darn good graphical settings, and the game ran super smooth. It was amazing, not a single fluctuation in overall frame rate. It kept the 120 plus FPS the whole time at the native resolution. If you're willing to make a compromise and go to 1080p, you can easily hit 150 plus FPS numbers. Now I also want to try out more mainstream games like Fortnite, for example. Again, I was able to completely max out that game at Quad HD resolution and sustained 100 plus FPS throughout the entire gameplay. There were minor drops in frame, but I suspect that was more to do with my Wi-Fi connection than the actual hardware. Again, lowered the overall resolution and you can go well over 120 FPS for the duration of the gameplay. Now finally, I want to test out a game that's more CPU intensive, and so I tried City Skyline, which is all about active simulations. With a large enough population, it can be quite taxing on the CPU, but that i7 HX chip honestly just eats this game alive. Not once did I run into any frame drops or any sort of lag or any sort of indication that this processor is struggling to process all those simulations. On the contrary, the game consistently stayed at the maximum 60 FPS and there were no visible signs of slowing down no matter how large my city population and simulation got. Overall, this is a very capable gaming laptop. Granted, you might not be able to fully max out some of the latest AAA titles, but you can come really close, and the most impressive part is that you're basically getting quad HD level gaming here at a fairly reasonable price point. Thermals are a bit of a mixed bag here, so under unrealistic peak loads, this laptop can hit a maximum surface temperature of around 47 degrees Celsius, which is quite hot. But even under more realistic sustained loads, you can still go up to 44 degrees Celsius, which is too close for comfort in my opinion. And what's interesting is that you do have a vapor chamber here. Despite that, we're hitting quite high numbers. Now, fan noise is quite tamed on the other hand, so I only hit a maximum of around 55 decibels at maximum RPM, which is far quieter than I thought it would be. The HP Victus, for example, can hit numbers of over 60 decibels pretty much all the time. Over here, it only really goes on when you're doing intensive activities, and sometimes even then it kind of shuts off for a bit. I don't know if Dell's system is too reserved, but fan noise is peaceful. In terms of upgradability, you do have a total of 2 RAM slots, DDR5, which can be maxed out at 64 gigabytes of memory. You can also replace the M.2 storage, and finally, the wireless card is also fully upgradable and can be swapped out at your convenience. Only a fool expects battery life from a laptop like this, but if you are curious, you can get up to 4 hours on a single charge if you are doing no-brainer activities like web surfing all day long, or for 4 hours anyway. Doing anything heavier, just plug it in, please. Now, in terms of the speaker quality, you have a dual bottom firing speaker setup, and it's quite disappointing. There's practically no bass, there is a fear of distortion at higher volume levels, headphones are advisable, but here's a quick sound test for reference anyway.
1, 2, 3, 4 steps I take from my bed to the floor. 5, 6, 7, 8. Will today be rough or will today be great? 9, 10, 11, 12. Lately I've been going through hell. 13, 14, 15, 16. Today's the day. Are you coming? Are you I'm sick of being normal. I'm sick of being average. I'm sick of being mortal. I'm about to be a savage.
The configuration we have here will yield you around $1,350 US. Though to be fair, if you get the cheapest configuration with a i5 processor, 3050 graphics, and the base 120Hz full HD LCD screen, you're looking at about $730. This basically means this laptop can be spec'd as an entry-level gaming laptop or a mid-range gaming laptop, depending on the configuration you get. But there's certain assurances you get across all levels, like DDR5 memory, HX series processors, a minimum of 120Hz refresh rate, and many more consistencies alike just like that, like upgradability for example. Sure, Dell does make some compromises with the G15, like cheaper build quality and miserable speakers if I'm being honest, but the fact is that this is a very utilitarian machine. The intention here was to give people a chance at Alienware level gaming without having to pay that hefty price tag, and in that regard I think Dell achieved their targeted goal. You are getting amazing performance across all configurations here. You have a great display that's not only great for general gaming, but also great for high-end productivity activities like color-sensitive photo or video editing. It's an extremely utilitarian laptop, and in my opinion, this is one of the best gaming laptops on the market in 2023, and probably will be next year as well. Let me know what you think of the Dell G15, if you're going to be getting one, or if you have one, how your experience has been. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.